Hey everybody, it's Cody, and wanted to thank Mr. Bob and Miss Gina for the great presentation on the Guatemala missions trip that they did. That's really cool to learn about, and I thought we could do a craft day based on a Guatemalan craft that kids in that area can do. We are going to make a Quetzal flying bird toy type thing. It's typically like a decoration that they make. A Quetzal is a bird, and it is the national bird of Guatemala. It's a beautiful red and green bird, and they make it typically in September is when they would like make this decoration for a decoration to celebrate their Independence Day. So to do this craft, some things you're going to need are glue. I would recommend having runny type glue. If you have it, you can use a glue stick, but it might be a little bit harder to do. You're gonna need some Googly Eyes. I have little ones, big or small, whatever you have works. If you don't have Googly Eyes, you can always draw eyes on at the end, that's okay. A toilet paper roll, cardboard roll. You're gonna need something to write with, so either a marker, pen, pencil, it really doesn't matter what. Scissors, some string, twine, whatever you have lying around the house, a piece of yellow paper preferably, but you can really use whatever color you want. If you want a different color, this is going to be the beak on the bird. Yellow construction paper, yellow printer type paper, whatever you have lying around. You're going to need a stick or a wood dole or something like that. I literally just went out into the wide open garden and found a stick, so that's what I'm going to use today because that's what I had on hand. And if you're going to make a traditional Quetzal bird, you're going to need 2 pieces of tissue paper, 1 red, 1 green. If you don't have these 2 colors or you want to do a different color bird, go for it. It's your bird. Do what you want. They are all going to be unique and special, and just like God made us. So we're going to get started. I'm going to pause the video for a second and try to make it so you can see my table and workspace instead of seeing me, and we'll get started on it, okay? Okay, so we're going to go and get started. If I go out of the screenshot at any point, I apologize. I'm doing this on my own today. I don't have Mr. Jared helping me, so we'll see how I go. Also, you might hear some noise in the background. Hopefully it won't be too bad, but we're doing some construction on our house today, and so that's what I'm stuck with. Okay, so to get started, we're gonna get our yellow piece of paper, and we're going to fold it in half. And like I said, this is your bird, your project, so you can do whatever you would like with it. And you can either cut it in half, fold the paper in half, and just tear it. It really is up to you. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to fold it a couple of times, get a good crease, because that's a bit easier for me. And it doesn't have to be perfect, because actually we're going to cut it again. It's just a bit easier to work with. Okay, and then what we're going to do is take this piece of paper, and we're going to use our scissors. I guess you really don't need a drawing utensil if you don't have one and don't want one. But we're going to just kind of make like a roundish cone shape, what would turn into a cone. And hopefully I made mine big enough. I think I did. But what you're going to end up doing is taking this, curling it, and it's going to go on top of this little guy. Which actually, I don't think I made mine quite big enough. So, whoopsie, let's try that again. So this is why we do this. Let's try again. I might need to make a bigger one than what I did before. Where did I go wrong? Okay, I see what I did wrong. So I'm gonna start all the way down here in this corner. And I'm gonna go out a bit farther. I bet that'll be better. So, yeah, perfect. And you're just gonna kind of fold it to where it's going to make a cone shape. And it doesn't have to be perfect actually, because we're going to end up folding the top half, but what you're going to end up doing is gluing it, and I'll just kind of show you in advance so you know what you're kind of doing with it. And it's going to end up being something like that on top. Okay, so what I'm going to do is figure this out. It takes a little bit of time. It's okay if you don't get it perfect the first time. I definitely did not. I've already made one of these and I still struggle. So that kind of gives you an idea that it doesn't have to be perfect. I kind of like it like that. So what I think I'm going to do is open it up now that I know that it's kind of folded where it's folded at. And I'm going to take my glue and I'm going to put a thin line of glue right along my outside edge, just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect. And we're going to, you're going to end up getting glue all over yourself. I did on my last one too, so don't be surprised when you see me getting glue everywhere. And I'm going to kind of glue that in, and I'm going to kind of just hold it down for a second on the inside. I'm hoping you guys can see what I'm doing, so that it stays in place. And then I'm even going to take a little bit of glue on this outside edge here where I didn't get it glue all the way, and go again with it. And then I'm going to hold that down for just a couple seconds so that it's nice and tight, like so. And then it fits, and it actually has a lot of space. So what I found easiest to do for later bits of the project is this bit right here, I'm going to cut off. So I'm going to kind of make it a flat line, take my scissors after I'm done, and just go like that and snip that little bit off so that it's a bit easier to manage. It still fits on my top of my tube, okay? And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take more glue, and I'm going to make a nice little glue line all the way around my tube, just like so. There we go. And you're going to put this on top of it, try to get all the glue in it, and then just kind of squeeze it down. And this does not have to be perfect, so don't worry if you crinkle it or crunch it. You're actually going to end up covering this piece up that's down here. So do not worry about that at all. But you're going to kind of just hold it on for a couple seconds, make sure it's nice and tight. If you don't want to glue it and you want to tape it instead, you can do that. That's acceptable as well. I just chose to glue mine. It felt a little bit easier for me. But you have glue, staples, tape, whatever you have around, you can use. Okay, so that's kind of where we're at now. Doesn't look like much, but it's going to turn into a bird, believe it or not. So I'm going to set that off to the side for right now. And I'm going to grab my piece of green tissue paper. And this isn't all going to stay in the screen, but in the end it will. And what we're going to start doing is just taking this nice long, actually, wait a second. Don't do that yet. Don't do that. We're going to cut a strip of the tissue paper before we start. And I'm going to take maybe my hand's length or a little bit smaller. I'm sure I'll readjust it in the end. And cut that straight across like so. Doesn't have to be perfect. Don't worry if it's not. Nobody's going to know that it's crooked in the end, I promise, even if you do make it a little crooked, because I'm not cutting straight. Okay. Okay, so now I have this piece, and I'm going to set that back off to the side actually and work with my little bit smaller piece. Now what we're going to do, which is what I was going to do before, is fold it. And I found it easiest to make it about 1 to 2 inch strips, and you're just going to kind of continually fold the entire thing the entire way across. That's what I found the easiest to do for me. If you don't like how this works in the end and you want to try it a different way, you can do so. But for today, for right now, this was a bit easier actually than what I originally did, I realized. So I'm going to do it this way. And I'm pushing down on it just a little bit, not super hard to make the fold, but that's just more so it's a little bit easier to manage when I get ready to do my next step. Okay, so that actually was pretty even. So now I have this nice little strip here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it into several sections now. So the first section I'm going to make the longest, and I'm actually going to use about 1/4 of my strip that I have left, maybe even a little bit more than 1/4 of it. And I'm going to cut it just like that, set it off to the side. And then you're going to take the rest of this strip, the bigger piece of your strip that you have left, and I think I'm going to cut mine into about 4 sections. You can probably get away with 3. I might end up doing 3 or 2 larger and 1 smaller, or, you know, 2 big, 2 small, whatever you want to do. The great thing about birds and their feathers is that they're not all the same. So it's okay if your feathers end up being different. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces, different lengths, and they're still folded. So I'm going to take my 4 smaller pieces and set them off to the side. Hopefully they'll be off to the side and you don't see them. And now what I'm going to do, this is going to be the tail feather. This is the first part of the Quetzal bird feathers. So you want them to be the nice and longest. They have really beautiful long tails. And I'm going to just cut about 2/3, 3/4 the way up my paper, whatever I'm kind of feeling. If you want your bird's feathers to be a little bit shorter, you can do that. But the whole point is that in the end, you'll be waving them around. And so it's kind of pretty to have something flying behind. And I'm cutting mine into, I think, 4 sections here. If you want to do 3, you can do 3. If you want to just do 2, you can do 2. I did 3 on my first Quetzal bird, but I'm going to do 4 here. But my strips are also a little bit bigger, I think. So, let me go just a little bit farther. There we go. So have that. Now we're going to unfold it carefully so that you don't tear these off, the fringes off. If a couple of them fall off or you rip a couple, it's okay. It's not a big deal. It's going to have so many fringes on it in the end that won't actually matter a whole lot. Okay, so lay this out like so. And it's okay with the little creases in your feathers. If that's going to bother you, you can undo them. I'm going to push mine down just a little bit to make it easier for gluing purposes, but it's really up to you. It doesn't matter one way or another a whole lot. I actually cut that somehow. I'm not sure what I did there, but oh well. Okay, so I'm going to take my glue again, and I'm going to run, for me, I realized the easiest thing to do was to go corner to corner, a strip straight across my tissue paper. If this is not easy for you and you would rather do a piece at a time, you can do so. Whatever's easiest for you. But I chose to do it this way. It's a little bit easier. And what I'm going to do is start at the bottom or near bottom of my tube. And actually, let me pull this over just to make sure it's in shot for you. Hopefully it is. And I chose to make the fringe almost right at the very bottom of my bird's feathers. And then you're just going to roll and roll and roll. And the beauty of this is that their feathers, like I said before, are not the same length, all their feathers. So if you go a little crooked on this, it's okay. And actually, even if you want to start working your way up a little bit so that there's a little bit of different height to their feathers, the feathers at the bottom, you can do that. I'm just kind of rolling however I feel like here. There we go. So that's my first layer is done, and this is going to be his tail. And I see that I have just a tiny little bit right there, so I'm going to put a little drop of glue just to make sure that that's nice and tight on the thing. Okay, and then what I'm going to do now is take out my next longest strip that I had, and we're going to start making its body feathers. So same thing. I'm going to do 4 again, and I'm going to go about 2/3 of the way up my strip, maybe 3/4, something like that, depending on what I'm feeling or what you're feeling. Either is okay. And we're going to go just like that. And you're going to do the same thing again. You're going to pull it all out. Like so. I'm going to pull these down a little bit. And part of the reason why I'm choosing to flatten my middle feathers out a little bit, those feathers, is just so that the fringe doesn't get in the glue quite so easily and the glue doesn't get in my way. And I'm going to do the same thing again. So start at one corner with my glue near the top of my tissue paper, but I'm leaving a little bit of space so that when it mushes down, I'm not getting glue everywhere. And so that's okay. And then I realized on my last one, I started this fringe basically where this fringe ended, and I didn't like that. So I'm actually going to overlap my fringe a little bit more than what I did before. So about halfway. And then I'm going to start wrapping again, and I'm going to turn it hopefully so that it's in the shot a little bit longer or closer to being longer. Who knows? And I'm going to roll, 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 roll. And the great thing about the tissue paper is that it connects to that glue really well and dries really fast. So, and right now it just kind of looks a little bit like a rocket, doesn't it? So, and I'm going to hold it down for a minute. And we're going to repeat that process again. I'm going to get my next longest strip that I cut, that I already have folded. I'm going to cut it 1, 2, 3 times, I am going to unravel it. And I'm trying to go fast with it, so make sure you take your time so that if you need to, it's okay. Like I said, I've already made one of these, so I'm a little bit faster than what I was the first time around. The first time it took me probably about an hour to get my thing done by the time I figured out exactly how I wanted to do it. So if it takes you a little bit longer, that's okay. So glue all the way down again, like so. And once again, I'm going to work my fringe up farther. We're going to put it right about there. I think I might even be in the yellow a little bit, and that's okay, because remember, like I said, we need to end up covering that yellow up, or at least part of it. So yeah, I actually ended up being on the yellow, and I'm okay with that. And I'm just going to roll him up here. Roll, 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 roll. Roll my little fossil up. I might have gotten a couple fringes in my glue, but that's okay. And I'm gonna hold it down again. And you can kind of fluff him up a little bit. I like to fluff him just so I kind of see what he's looking like. He's a very full feathered bird. Okay, I have 2 strips left actually, but I think I may only use 1 more, we'll see. And I think one of these was just a little bit smaller. So I'm gonna use this one. Still working with my next biggest size. I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3. And I actually cut that up a little too far maybe, so this is gonna be a bit tighter of a fringe for me to do, but that's my fault. So I hear construction workers outside working. I don't know what they're doing. So if you hear them too, I apologize. They are working on the house today. Okay. So 1 more round of glue. Like I said, it doesn't have to be really thick, mainly because tissue paper is so thin, it sticks together really well. It kind of all becomes one nice big sticky mess. And I am going to go up, I think, to about here on my bird. So I'm actually going to do my final layer where I want my tissue paper to kind of end at. And it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. That's okay if it's not. It actually becomes a little bit, because you're working on that cone bit now, it's going to get all mushed together a little bit. It's going to not look great at the top, but that's okay, because in the end, it actually works out. I just got glue on my finger because I was talking and not paying attention to what I was doing. So here we go. Nice little roll. Roll, 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 roll. And then in the end, what I did was kind of the same thing I did with the yellow paper. I squished it. I'm choosing to squish it all onto the underside where that seam is so that it looks a little bit neater. But you can do whatever you want. So I mushed all my tape paper so you can kind of see it's not as pretty on the bottom, but that's okay. And we're gonna go like that for a minute. And I'm gonna set him off side. So this is what you should look like now. Kind of a little bit like a Christmas tree rocket type thing. I don't know, it's kind of cool, whatever you wanna call it though. And I'm going to set him off to the side. And I'm going to come back. And like I said, remember I chose not to use this 4th piece and that, or 5th piece, and that's okay. So I'm gonna put that off to the side. I don't need it any longer. I'm gonna get my red tissue paper now, and I am going to cut a strip pretty much like I did before on the green one. That's what I'm choosing to do. And I might end up making it a little bit smaller once I cut it down. We'll see. Whatever looks good in the end. So this is a little bit like a trial and error. So if you don't get it right the first time, try again, or you can always cut it down. And this is better to make it a little bit too big. So I'm gonna set my red off to the side. And I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before with my red tissue paper that I did with my green. But as far as folding goes, but I'm not actually gonna fold the whole thing. I'm gonna fold a lot less. I think I'm gonna stop about halfway and actually cut this last bit off because I don't want the whole red thing. I think that might be too much fringe for its belly, because right now we're working on the belly of the bird. So I'm gonna just snip that off. Like so. And then I don't think I actually want it this big. Looking at my bird and its feathers, that's gonna be a huge red belly. So I think I'm actually gonna cut that just a little less than half, a little more than half, somewhere in there. I did it just a little bit bigger than half. We'll see. I might end up using a smaller piece. I'm gonna try again. I'm liking that size a little bit more. I think I'm actually gonna cut off just a little bit more though. I don't want a huge red belly. They do have beautiful red bellies, so you can look it up. It's not spelled how it sounds. It's spelled Quetzal, I believe, but it's the Guatemalan bird. So if you can look up the national bird of Guatemala, it'll come up that way too if you wanna look up a picture of the bird. I am gonna cut 4 small strips, and like I said, I'm not going all the way up. Don't forget not to go all the way up because otherwise you're gonna just have little strips of tissue paper everywhere. I'm going about 2/3, 3/4 of the way up, and I'm gonna unfold it, and it's a littler piece, and I think I like that a lot better than what I had lengthwise. Okay, so now that I have this out, before I actually, I'm gonna push those down, I'm gonna end up folding it because this is the belly of the bird. So I'm gonna take my glue and I'm going to put a nice long strip right along this. Just like that. If you miss a little spot, it's okay, or go back, doesn't really matter. And I think I'm gonna make my birds maybe like 2 of those. So I don't want a huge belly on my Quetzal, but I'm gonna just fold it, and then I'm going to fold it again. And I'm gonna fold it one more time, like so. I guess I could have also just chosen to fold it bigger to begin with and cut more strips, but I like this way better, I think. And then I'm gonna pull out my bird. And like I said, this is his belly. So I'm gonna do the underside where I said I made the mushy mess and my seam is on my yellow paper. And I'm gonna kind of just pick a spot. His tail's here. So maybe right in here somewhere, I'm gonna put his belly. And I'm actually gonna cover up most of his feathers this time, I think. Last time I kind of went underneath the green, but I kind of want his red to be showing. I also don't like that feather's so big, so I'm gonna cut that real quick. I guess I didn't need to do that because I think I'm gonna go under the more I look at it. So that's where I'm gonna put my little guy's red belly with his nice red feather fringe. And to do that, I'm going to put glue on the back side. And you have to be careful not to put a whole lot of glue because it does get very wet and sticky with the tissue paper. And I'm gonna just go under his feather belly, and I'm gonna give him a nice little red feather belly. And I'm gonna hold that down for just a couple seconds. That glue will actually start holding and sticking pretty fast. And it'll dry clear, but right now it's a little bit wet and gross. Okay, so now I have a red-bellied green Christmas tree thing, but it's not quite done. It'll look like a bird in the end, I promise. Okay, so that's where we're at now. Okay, now that piece, I'm gonna set him off to the side. That big long strip of green paper that I almost forgot to cut off in the beginning, we're gonna pull that back out. And we're gonna make his wings. To do his wings, we're not gonna do fringe so that they're a bit more visible. I'm going to cut this in half or thereabouts. Doesn't have to be perfect. Nobody will know but you if it's not. So mine's not quite perfect, but that's okay. And I'm going to fold it in half again, just like so. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side for the other wing, and these are gonna be its wings. And in the end, what you're gonna do is look for a little bit of space, kind of where your belly was, to hook the wings to, because you know their wings are up pretty high where they connect at. And you're going to connect it like this. Now, looking at that, I can tell that my wings are way too big. So I'm gonna end up cutting them down. And hopefully I won't cut them down too much because that's what my problem was last time. So I think if I cut, I'm gonna do them together to make it easier. We're gonna cut maybe a quarter or a third, something like that off. That's what I'm gonna do. You may like the really big feathers, and that's okay. So don't feel like you have to do that. This is just what I am choosing to do. I'm going to stick it, and I think that looks a lot better. It's not a crazy long distance now on his body. And very carefully lay him off to the side here. and I'm gonna find a spot that I can connect his wing to. So I'm gonna do it right here, actually on the belly. I think that's my best spot. And I'm going to glue just the edge. Oh, hopefully you can see this. Put one back there. I'm gonna glue where it's folded in half on the outside of one of them. Glue strip all the way down. And then on my Quetzal, I'm going to connect it. And I'm gonna just kind of mush it down. Mush, 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 mush. And hold it for a couple seconds. Like I said, this great thing about using tissue paper and glue, it doesn't take long. So there's one wing. And then I'm gonna come to the other side and do the exact same thing again. Like I said, I've chosen to do it along his belly. You may find a better spot that you like better, and that's okay. You do whatever you feel comfortable with or whatever you want your bird to look like. I actually, even on my first bird, I chose not to do red and green. I did a blue bird with a little white belly, kind of like what Cinderella or Snow White has, because I'm a Disney person. I am making sure that my flaps are going the same way. So flaps are going down for me when it opens. And stick him on, glue him down, hold him for a minute or two. Doesn't have to be very long, not even really a minute, a couple seconds, just to make sure it's down. Okay, so now I've got a long-winged bird, starting to look a little bit like a bird. We're going to stretch out his belly, pull his little feathers all down. He's got his feathers messed up, but that's okay. Birds don't have perfect feathers either. Okay, I'm gonna get my googly eyes now. I actually have two that fell out of the bag already. And I'm gonna glue the googly eyes on him on the top, and I'm gonna put them right at the edge of the green, right before you get to the yellow. And like I said, if you don't have googly eyes, you can definitely draw some googly eyes. You can draw some eyes on just with like a black marker, or you can cut them out, or if you have googly eyes or if you have beads, whatever you're feeling, you can do. So there's one eye, and I just did my two little glue dots. Oh geez, I dropped his little eyeball. And I have to laugh every time I put the googly eyes on because they just come alive all of a sudden. It went from not being anything to looking more like a bird. I don't think I got enough glue actually on that one. So let's try again. I have too much glue there now. Okay, so put his little eyeballs on. I think they're so cute once they get their little eyes. So now I have, if I can connect, find the tube. There it is. I have something that looks a lot more like a bird than what it did a few minutes ago. It's not perfect, but it's a craft, it's supposed to be a decoration, and it's supposed to be flying in the air anyway, so it'll be okay. Okay, last thing you're gonna do, well, I guess it's almost last. Now we need to connect him to his string and stick. And I will say, if you want to try to put a string through your tube and up through the beak hole, you can do that. I didn't have luck with it. Maybe if you have like a bead to tie onto the end where a bead doesn't come out, you could do that. I instead am just going to use his beak itself and tie my string straight to his beak, and that'll be okay. And I'm gonna take maybe 2 feet, something like that, of string. I just did an arm's length. You could probably do an arm's length and it'd probably be perfect for you as well. And I'm just going to tie his, actually I'm gonna flip him over first, because what I did last time that I noticed worked a little bit better and helped me secure it, I'm hoping you can see it, is I put a little spot of glue on the bottom of his beak, and I gave myself some string to work with, and I stuck my string straight into the glue, and then I flipped it over. And Quetzals, I believe, have more of a nice, pretty pointed beak, but mine does not. So I went like that, and I glued it down, and then, like I said, I did choose to tie mine, and I'm tying mine by wrapping my bigger string around just a couple of times to have something to work with, maybe. Let's try that again. I have glue on my fingers, so my string is sticking to my fingers a little bit. There we go. And if you can't tie it on your own and you need some help, I'm sure get a parent or a guardian or babysitter, grandma, grandpa, friend, whoever's hanging out with you today to do it. Doesn't have to be perfect. And you're gonna just knot that string straight onto the paper. And I squeezed mine a little bit, it went down into the thing, but you know what? That's okay. I'm gonna make sure that I have a nice good knot on it. I'd rather make sure of that instead of it looking pretty, because it's gonna be flying around anyway and nobody's gonna be able to tell, which is the great part. And I'm going to double knot mine just so I have a little bit of extra protection. Oh, that didn't work. Let's try that again. There we go. And there's really no right or wrong way to knot it either, which is the nice thing, because this definitely isn't the best knot I've ever done in life, but it's okay. Okay, and I'm going to cut off my extra string like that. Okay, so now he looks like this. Now he's got a little bit of a messed up beak, but it's okay. You'll never know once he's fine. And then I'm going to grab my stick or dowel or pencil, whatever you have lying around. Like I said, I went up onto the garden and found a stick. And I am going to tie the other end of my string onto my stick. And I'm gonna leave a little bit of space just so it's a little bit thicker. Maybe I have glue on my fingers so it's not sticking. May have to go wash my hands real quick. We'll see. And tie that on. And I'm going to do the same thing, kind of what I did with my beak part of my string. I'm gonna double knot it. I'm even going to loop that extra bit of the string around a couple of times just to make sure it's not going anywhere, like so. And then I'm gonna knot it one more time and do a double knot again, just to make sure he's really stuck to my string. Like so. Okay. And I'm gonna choose to cut off the majority of my extra string right here that I'm not using. It's personal preference. Hopefully I have it knotted well enough. Yep, okay. So then it's going to look like this. And now what you do is you can take it outside or fling it around the house. I'm hoping I can get the construction people to stop working for just a minute and I will show you what it looks like in motion. Okay. Okay, so here's my little bird. I'm outside now. And if you fling it around, hopefully this will work. And we'll see how the cameraman does. But you can kind of, oops, like that. And it kind of looks like he's flying. And the kids actually can get pretty good at it. So once you practice a little bit, but now you have a cool little flying toy. Or my dogs and cats are loving to play with it too. So have fun making, guys, and I'll see you later. Bye.